The cargo freighter Distant Shore had been hauling supplies across the outer sectors for 3 weeks straight. The crew was tired, ready to dock at Port Meridian and grab some real food instead of the recycled protein packs they'd been surviving on. Jake Mitchell wiped the grease off his hands as the ship's engines powered down. As chief engineer, his job was basically done once they landed. Or so he thought. The docking clamps locked into place with a heavy thud that echoed through the hull. Jake grabbed his toolkit and headed toward the cargo bay for the routine inspection. Standard procedure. Check the seals, make sure nothing shifted during flight, count the crates. Boring work, but it paid the bills. He'd done this 1,000 times before. The cargo bay doors hissed open and Jake stepped inside. The lighting was dim, casting long shadows between the stacked containers. Everything looked normal at first. Medical supplies for the colony on Threshold 9. Nothing exciting. He started his walkthrough, checking off items on his datapad. That's when he heard it. A small sound. Almost like a whimper. Jake stopped walking and listened. There it was again. Coming from behind the far stack of crates near the cooling unit. His first thought was that some animal had snuck aboard. Wouldn't be the first time. Last year they'd found a rat-like creature from Proxima that had chewed through half the electrical wiring. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle whatever was back there. But when he rounded the corner, he froze. It wasn't an animal. It was a child. An alien child, small and curled up against the metal wall, shaking like a leaf in a storm. She looked up at him with huge eyes that reflected the dim light. Her skin was covered in bioluminescent markings that should have been glowing bright, but they were barely flickering. Like a dying battery. Jake had seen enough species during his years in space to recognize what he was looking at. Valkyrian. From one of those desert planets where the temperature never dropped below 100 degrees. And right now, she was freezing to death in a cargo bay that was perfectly comfortable for humans. Jake dropped his datapad and rushed over. The girl flinched, trying to make herself smaller. She was wearing thin clothes that wouldn't keep anyone warm, and her small hands were practically blue. Well, whatever color passed for blue on a Valkyrian. Her teeth were chattering so hard he could hear them clicking together. Hey, it's okay, Jake said softly, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. I'm not gonna hurt you. She didn't seem to understand his words, but his tone must have registered because she stopped trying to crawl away. Up close, Jake could see she was in bad shape. Really bad. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, and those flickering markings on her skin were definitely a warning sign. He'd worked with enough Valkyrians to know that when their bioluminescence started failing, it meant their core temperature was dropping to dangerous levels. Jake didn't waste time thinking about protocol or rules or what he was supposed to do. He just acted. He grabbed his work jacket, the thick insulated one he wore in the cold sections of the ship, and wrapped it around the tiny girl. She was so small that the jacket practically swallowed her whole. The effect was immediate. Her shaking started to ease up. The markings on her exposed hands and face began to glow a bit brighter. She pulled the jacket tighter around herself and looked up at Jake with an expression he couldn't quite read. Confusion, maybe. Or surprise. That's better, here? Jake sat down on the floor next to her, careful to keep some distance so she wouldn't feel trapped. You've been hiding back here for a while, haven't you? She just stared at him, still shivering but not as violently. Jake could see now that she was young. Maybe 8 or 9 in human years, though he wasn't sure how Valkyrian aging worked exactly. She had that look though. That scared kid look that was universal across every species he'd ever met. His communicator buzzed. It was the captain asking about the cargo inspection. Jake glanced at the girl, then at the comm device. He should report this immediately. Station security would need to be notified. There were protocols for stowaways. But looking at this terrified child who was barely clinging to consciousness, Jake made a decision. Mitchell here. Cargo bay is clear. Just running the final checks. Give me 10 more minutes. He switched off the comm before anyone could ask questions. The girl was watching him carefully now, her eyes tracking his every movement. Smart kid. Probably been on her own for a while to survive this long. Listen, Jake said gently. I need to get you somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She didn't respond, but she didn't pull away when Jake slowly stood up. He kept the jacket wrapped around her and carefully scooped her up. She weighed almost nothing. When was the last time she'd eaten? The girl tensed in his arms but didn't fight. Maybe she was too weak. Or maybe some part of her knew he was trying to help. Jake carried her toward the crew quarters, his mind racing through options. Medical bay was the obvious choice, but that meant immediate involvement from station authorities. And something in his gut told him this kid was running from something bad. You don't stow away on random cargo ships and nearly freeze to death unless you're desperate. Jake got the girl to the medical bay without running into anyone. The ship's doctor, a guy named Travis who'd seen pretty much everything in his 20 years of space medicine, took one look at the shivering Valkyrian child and just nodded. He didn't ask questions right away. That's what Jake liked about Travis. The man had priorities straight. Core temperature is way too low, Travis said, running a scanner over her. Another hour and we'd be looking at organ failure. What's her name? I don't know yet, Jake admitted. He was still wearing just his undershirt, having given up his jacket to keep her warm. Found her in Cargo Bay 3. Travis raised an eyebrow but kept working. He wrapped heated blankets around the girl and set up an four to get fluids into her. Slowly, her bioluminescent markings began to glow steadier. She watched both men with wide, cautious eyes. Can you understand me? Travis asked her gently, speaking in common, the universal trade language most species learned. What's your name? The girl's lips moved. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Lyra. Okay, Lyra. You're safe now. We're going to help you feel better. But even as Travis said those words, Jake knew it wasn't going to be that simple. Nothing ever was when it came to interstellar law and missing alien children. And sure enough, within an hour, the situation exploded into a bureaucratic nightmare. Captain Rodriguez wasn't happy. She stood in her office with her arms crossed, looking at Jake like he just told her the ship was on fire. You found a Valkyrian child and didn't immediately report it to station security? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble this causes? She was dying, Captain. I made a choice. A choice that now involves me, this ship, and our entire crew in a potential diplomatic incident. Rodriguez rubbed her temples. Station security has been notified. They are sending someone over. And apparently, the Valkyrian embassy has already been contacted. Jake felt his stomach drop. Already? How did they even know? Automated systems. The moment Travis logged her into medical, it triggered alerts. She's a registered minor. There's a missing persons report filed with her homeworld. The captain pulled up a screen showing official documents. Her family wants her back. Says she ran away. Did they say why she ran? Rodriguez's expression darkened. That's not our business, Mitchell. We're a cargo ship, not a rescue operation. But Jake couldn't let it go. Over the next few days, as Lyra stayed in medical recovering, he started digging. He spent his off hours in the station's public database, learning everything he could about Valkyrian culture and law. What he found made his blood boil. Lyra wasn't just some runaway kid. She was promised in something called a bonding contract. Essentially an arranged marriage to some important family's son. She was 8 years old. The contract had been signed when she was barely out of infancy. On her homeworld, this was completely legal. Normal, even. Jake sat in the mess hall, staring at his cold coffee, trying to process it. Lisa Chen, one of the navigation officers, sat down across from him. You look like someone kicked your dog, she said. Did you know about Valkyrian bonding contracts? Jake asked. Lisa grimaced. Unfortunately, yeah. Worked with a Valkyrian crew a few years back. It's not uncommon in their culture. The girl has no say in it. That's insane. That's their tradition. Lisa stirred her own coffee. Look, I get it. It bothers me too. But we can't impose human values on every species we meet. That's colonialism. This isn't about imposing values. This is about a kid who's so desperate to escape her situation that she nearly died trying. Jake's voice was rising. Other crew members were starting to look over. She's been hiding in cargo holds for weeks, Lisa. Weeks. Stealing scraps of food. That's not a kid throwing a tantrum. That's a kid fighting for her life. Word spread through the human crew quickly. By the evening, Tom Bradley from engineering and Amy Parker from communications had both visited Lyra in medical. Tom brought her some candy bars from Earth. Amy downloaded children's shows onto a tablet for her to watch. Lyra didn't understand the stories, but she smiled at the bright colors and funny sounds. The alien crew members watched this with confusion. The ship's first officer, a Corthan named Vex, pulled Jake aside one day. Why do your people invest so much emotion in this situation? Vex asked. His translator made his voice sound flat and curious. The child will be returned to her legal guardians. This is the natural order. Natural order. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. She's a kid who doesn't want to be sold off like property. She is fulfilling her family's agreements. This brings honor to her bloodline. I don't care about honor. I care about her being happy. About her having a choice. Vex tilted his head, genuinely puzzled. Choice? She is a juvenile. Juveniles do not make such decisions in any civilized society. That's when Jake realized the real problem. It wasn't just Valkyrian law. It was that most species in the galaxy didn't see children the way humans did. They saw them as incomplete adults. As property of their parents. As investments in family legacy. The concept of childhood as a protected time, of children having inherent rights separate from their parents, that was apparently a weird human thing. Station security arrived the next day. The officer in charge, a tall Corthan female named Kess, was all business. She reviewed the case files, interviewed Travis about Lyra's condition, and informed Captain Rodriguez that Valkyrian representatives would arrive within 3 days to take custody of the child. She's not an object to be handed over, Jake protested during the meeting. She is a minor who illegally left her homeworld, Kess replied coldly. The law is clear. Then the law is wrong. Kess stared at him for a long moment. Your species has very strange ideas about child rearing, Engineer Mitchell. This emotional attachment to offspring not your own is inefficient. Maybe, Jake said. But at least we give a damn. That night, Jake sat with Lyra in medical. She was feeling better now, warm and fed and safe. She was still wearing his jacket even though she didn't need it anymore. She'd refused to give it back. Lyra, Jake said carefully. Do you understand what's happening? Your family is coming to take you home. Her bioluminescent markings flickered in a pattern Jake had learned meant fear. She shook her head violently. No, go back. Please. No, go back. Her broken comment tore at Jake's heart. He wanted to promise her everything would be okay. But he didn't know if that was true. All he knew was that he had 3 days to figure something out. 3 days to find a way to help a kid who just wanted what every child deserved. The right to be a child. The next morning, Jake found Lyra in the mess hall. Someone had gotten her proper clothes that actually fit, though she still wore his jacket over everything like armor. Lisa was teaching her how to use a fork. The sight of this tiny alien girl carefully stabbing at scrambled eggs while Lisa encouraged her made something tighten in Jake's chest. That's it, you've got it, Lisa said with a warm smile. See? Not so different from eating with your hands, just cleaner. Lyra managed to get a bite into her mouth and her face lit up. Real food, prepared fresh, probably tasted like heaven after weeks of stealing scraps. Tom walked over with a mug of something steaming. Okay, kiddo, you gotta try this, he said, setting it down in front of her. Hot chocolate. Human specialty. It's basically liquid happiness. Lyra sniffed it suspiciously, then took a tiny sip. Her eyes went wide and she immediately took another bigger gulp. The humans laughed, not at her, but with genuine joy at her reaction. Even crusty old Travis, who'd seen everything, was smiling. Easy there, you'll make yourself sick, Jake warned, but he was grinning too. Over the next 2 days, something remarkable happened. The human crew adopted Lyra without anyone really deciding to do it. It just happened naturally. Amy started teaching her simple words in English. Tom showed her how the ship's engines worked, letting her press buttons on the inactive consoles. Lisa braided her hair, or whatever the Valkyrian equivalent was, into intricate patterns. Jake spent every free moment with her. He told her stories about Earth, about oceans and mountains and cities with millions of people. Lyra listened with fascination, asking questions in her broken common that got better every day. What is snow? She asked one evening. It's frozen water that falls from the sky when it's really cold, Jake explained. It covers everything in white. Kids play in it, make sculptures, throw snowballs at each other. Cold is bad, Lyra said, shivering at the memory of the cargo hold. Not all cold. Snow cold is different. It's fun cold. You can always go inside and warm up after. Jake pulled out his datapad and showed her pictures of winter on Earth. Her eyes went wide at the images of snow-covered forests and ice sculptures. Beautiful, she whispered. The alien crew members watched all of this with varying degrees of confusion. Vex, the Corthan first officer, approached Captain Rodriguez with concerns. The humans are becoming too attached to the child, he reported. This will make the transfer difficult. I'm aware, Rodriguez said. She was human too, and Jake knew she wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation either. But she had a ship to run and laws to follow. One afternoon, Jake was in the station's legal database again, his eyes burning from staring at screens. He'd been reading asylum law, children's rights conventions, anything that might help. Most of it was useless. Galactic law gave enormous power to planetary governments over their own citizens. But there were loopholes. Tiny ones. Cases where individuals had successfully claimed asylum based on fundamental rights violations. "You look terrible," a voice said. Jake looked up to find an elderly alien standing there. He was Thraxian, a species that looked sort of like upright lizards with too many fingers. "You are the human fighting for the Valkyrian child, yes?" "Word travels fast," Jake muttered. "I am Merchant Cal. I have traded in this sector for 40 years. The old Thraxian settled into a chair with a wheezing sound. "I have seen many things. Many injustices. But I have never seen someone fight so hard for a child not their own. She needs help. That's enough reason." Cal's eyes, which were huge and golden, studied Jake carefully. "Your species is strange. Most beings care for their own offspring because biology demands it. But humans extend this care to anyone young and vulnerable. Why?" Jake thought about it. "Because we remember what it's like to be small and scared. Because we believe kids deserve better than what adults decide for them. Because someone has to give a damn, you know?" "I do not know," Cal admitted. "But I find it intriguing. Tell me, this asylum law you are researching. You believe it can save her?" "I don't know. Maybe. If I can prove she's fleeing persecution." "An arranged bonding contract is not persecution under Valkyrian law. But it is under human law. And this is a neutral station. Multiple legal frameworks apply." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. "I just need to find the right angle." Cal was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised Jake. "I will file an intervention on the child's behalf. As a third-party witness to her distress. It will buy you time." "Why would you do that?" The old merchant stood slowly. "Because in 40 years of trade, I have learned that humans possess something rare. You call it compassion. We have no word for it in my language. But watching your crew care for that child, I think perhaps the galaxy needs more of this human thing. Even if we do not understand it." That evening, the whole human crew gathered in the mess hall with Lyra. Someone had found an old deck of cards and they were teaching her to play Go Fish. She was terrible at it but laughing every time someone said Go Fish. The sound of her laughter, bright and clear, filled the room. "She sounds like she's never laughed before," Amy said quietly to Jake. "Maybe she hasn't. Not like this." Travis came in looking serious. "Just got word. The Valkyrian representatives arrive tomorrow morning. They are bringing legal documents and security personnel." The mood in the room shifted immediately. Lyra sensed it too, her laughter fading. She looked at Jake with those huge eyes and he saw the question there. The fear. "We're not done fighting," Jake said, more to himself than anyone else. "Jake, man, what can we actually do?" Tom asked. "They have the law on their side. Then we change the law. Or we find a bigger law. Or we make so much noise that someone has to pay attention." Jake stood up. "I'm not letting them take her without a fight." Lisa nodded. "What do you need?" "Everything. I need to file formal asylum papers. I need witnesses. I need anyone who'll speak up about what's right versus what's legal. I need to make this matter." Amy pulled out her communicator. "I have contacts at the Galactic News Network. They love human interest stories. Literally. I can reach out to human rights organizations," Travis offered. "There are groups that monitor treatment of minors across different species." One by one, the human crew volunteered. They made calls, filed documents, sent messages across the network. They worked through the night while Lyra slept in medical, still clutching Jake's jacket. Vex found Jake in the early morning hours, still hunched over legal documents. "You should rest, Engineer Mitchell." "Can't. They'll be here in a few hours." "You will fail," Vex said. "Not cruelly, just stating a fact. The law is clear." "Maybe. But she'll know someone tried. She'll know someone cared enough to stand up for her." Jake looked at the Corthan. "Doesn't that matter to you at all?" Vex was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "My species does not understand human emotional attachment. We find it inefficient and often illogical. But I have served with human crews for many years. And I have learned that sometimes, your emotions accomplish what logic cannot." He turned to leave, then paused. "I will stand with you tomorrow. I do not know if it will help. But I will stand with you." Jake felt something loosen in his chest. Maybe they wouldn't win. Probably they wouldn't. But they were going to try. And somehow, that had to count for something. The Valkyrian delegation arrived exactly on schedule. 3 officials in formal robes and 2 security personnel who looked more like soldiers. They marched through Port Meridian like they owned the place, heading straight for the distant shore's docking bay. Jake watched them approach on the security feed, his jaw tight. "Here we go," Lisa muttered beside him. Captain Rodriguez met them at the airlock, diplomatic and professional. Jake couldn't hear what was being said, but he could read body language well enough. The lead Valkyrian official, a tall male with elaborate markings, was doing most of the talking. His gestures were sharp and impatient. Rodriguez's posture was stiff, defensive. Then they started moving toward Medical Bay. Toward Lyra. Jake didn't think. He just moved. By the time he reached the corridor outside Medical, the Valkyrians were already there. Lyra had heard them coming. She was pressed against the far wall, trembling, all that progress from the past few days vanishing in an instant. The lead official was speaking to her in their language, his tone commanding. "Stop," Jake said, stepping between them. "You're scaring her." The official turned cold eyes on him. "You are the one who found her. You should have reported her immediately. Your interference has complicated matters." "Complicated matters?" "She's a kid, not a legal problem. She is a child of House Valkara, promised to house the Ryan. This alliance has been planned for generations. Her duty is clear. She's 8 years old. She doesn't have duties. She has rights." The official made a dismissive gesture. "Your human concepts do not apply here. Lyra will return with us. Now." He moved toward her and Jake shifted to block his path completely. "No." The security personnel tensed. One of them put a hand on what looked like a weapon. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward quickly. "Gentlemen, please. Let's not escalate this situation." "There is nothing to escalate," the official said coldly. "We have legal authority. Move aside, human." "Make me." The words hung in the air. Jake heard footsteps behind him. Tom, Lisa, Amy, and Travis had arrived. They formed a line beside him, blocking the corridor. None of them said anything. They didn't need to. The Valkyrian official's markings flared bright with anger. "This is absurd. You cannot stop us. Station security will remove you if necessary." "Then call them," Jake said. "Let's see what happens when you try to drag a terrified child through a public corridor while humans are physically stopping you. Let's see how that looks on the news feeds." Because Amy had made good on her promise. Galactic News Network had picked up the story. "Human crew defends alien child" was already trending across multiple systems. The station was watching. The galaxy was watching. The official pulled out a communicator and barked something in his own language. Within minutes, station security arrived. Officer Kess looked at the scene, her expression unreadable. "Engineer Mitchell, you are obstructing legal proceedings," she said. "I'm protecting a child from being taken against her will." "Her will is irrelevant. She is a minor under Valkyrian law. And she's requesting asylum under galactic humanitarian law," Jake shot back. "I filed the paperwork 3 hours ago. Until there's a hearing, she stays here." Kess's eyes narrowed. "You filed asylum papers?" "Backed by testimony from 12 witnesses, including Merchant Kell, who's filed a third-party intervention." Jake had done his homework. Section 47 of the station charter says any asylum claim must be heard before transfer of custody can occur. "That's your law, officer. Not mine." The Valkyrian official looked ready to explode. "This is a delaying tactic. The claim will be rejected." "Maybe. But until then, she doesn't leave this ship." Kess seemed caught between irritation and something that might have been respect. "The hearing will be scheduled for tomorrow morning. Until then, the child remains in your custody, Engineer Mitchell. But you are personally responsible for her presence at that hearing. Understand?" "Understood." The Valkyrians left, but their anger was palpable. The lead official paused at the airlock. "You are making a mistake, human. You cannot win against centuries of law and tradition." "Watch me," Jake said. After they left, Jake's legs almost gave out. The adrenaline crash hit hard. Lisa caught his arm. "That was either really brave or really stupid," she said. "Probably both." Captain Rodriguez pulled Jake into her office an hour later. He expected to get yelled at, maybe even fired. Instead, she poured 2 glasses of whiskey. You've put this ship and this crew in a difficult position, she said, handing him a glass. I know. I'm sorry, Captain. Don't apologize yet. I haven't decided if I'm proud of you or furious with you. She took a sip. Probably both. The thing is, Mitchell, you've got half the galaxy watching now. Human advocacy groups are rallying. 3 different species rights organizations have filed supporting briefs. Even some Valkyrians back on their homeworld are speaking out against bonding contracts. Really? Apparently there's been a growing reform movement there for years. They just needed a push. A catalyst. Rodriguez smiled slightly. Leave it to humans to start a civil rights movement on another planet by accident. That night, Jake sat with Lyra in the mess hall. The ship was quiet. She was drawing pictures on a datapad Amy had given her. Stick figures of the crew. A rough sketch of the ship. And one of Jake, carefully drawn, with his jacket around her. Tomorrow is the hearing, Jake said gently. Do you understand what that means? Lyra nodded. Her comment had improved dramatically. They decide if I stay or go. Yeah. And you might have to talk to them. To tell them why you ran away. Scared, she admitted quietly. I know. But I'll be right there with you. All of us will. Why you help me? Lyra asked, looking up at him with those huge eyes. I am nothing to you. Jake had to swallow hard before he could answer. You're not nothing. You're a kid who needs help. That's everything. Valkyrians do not think this way. I know. But humans do. We believe that children should be protected. That they should have choices. That they should get to be kids before they have to be adults. He touched her shoulder gently. And we believe that when someone needs help, you help them. No matter who they are or where they come from. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that broke Jake's heart and put it back together at the same time. I wish I was human. You don't need to be human, Lyra. You just need to be you. That's enough. Early the next morning, before the hearing, Jake found Vex in the corridor. The Corthan had kept his word and would be testifying on Lyra's behalf. Why are you doing this? Jake asked. You said yourself you don't understand human emotions. I do not, Vex admitted. But I have been thinking. My species values logic and efficiency above all things. We build great machines and vast systems. But we do not build connections like humans do. We do not fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. His translator made his next words sound almost wistful. Perhaps there is something to learn from your inefficient emotions after all. Jake smiled. Welcome to the human side, Vex. I am not certain I belong there. But for today, I will stand there. As they walked toward the hearing room, Jake felt the weight of what was about to happen. They might lose. Probably would lose. The law was clear, as everyone kept reminding him. But they'd made noise. They'd stood up. They'd shown Lyra that someone cared. And sometimes, that had to be enough. Even when you knew it might not be. The hearing room was packed. Jake hadn't expected that. Representatives from a dozen different species filled the observation seats. News crews had cameras set up in the back. Whatever happened here today was going to be seen across multiple star systems. The council consisted of 5 members from different species, meant to represent neutral galactic law. A Thraxian judge sat in the center, her ancient eyes taking in everything. To her left was a Corthan legal expert, and to her right, a human diplomat named Carol Bennett who Jake had never met but was suddenly very grateful existed. Lyra sat between Jake and Lisa, wearing clean clothes and still clutching that damn jacket. She looked so small in the big chair. Her bioluminescent markings were flickering with nervousness. The Valkyrian delegation sat across the aisle, confident and unmoved. Their lead representative, Ambassador Theron, stood when called upon. He was polished, professional, and absolutely certain of his position. The facts are simple, Theron began. Lyra is a registered citizen of Valkara Prime. She is a minor child who left her homeworld without authorization. Her family has legal custody. Galactic law is clear on the primacy of planetary jurisdiction over their own citizens. He pulled up documents on the central display. The bonding contract between House Valkara and House Therion is legally binding and culturally significant. This is not cruelty. This is tradition that predates human spaceflight by millennia. The Thraxian judge nodded. And what is your response to the asylum claim? Asylum requires proof of persecution or danger. An arranged bonding contract, while perhaps uncomfortable to human sensibilities, does not constitute persecution under any recognized legal framework. The child is not in danger. She will be well cared for, educated, and eventually fulfill her obligations to her house. It was a strong argument. Jake felt his stomach sink. Theron was right about the law. He'd spent enough sleepless nights reading those same legal documents to know it. Then it was their turn. Jake stood, his mouth dry. Public speaking had never been his thing. He was an engineer. He fixed machines, not legal systems. Your Honors, he started, his voice rougher than he'd like. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a guy who found a kid freezing to death in my cargo bay. A kid so desperate to escape her situation that she was willing to die trying. He pulled up images on his datapad and projected them. This is Lyra when I found her. Look at her. Really look. She'd been hiding in cargo ships for weeks, barely surviving. That's not a kid throwing a tantrum about her future. That's a kid fighting for her life. Ambassador Theron made a dismissive gesture. Dramatic words, but they do not change the legal reality. Maybe not, Jake admitted. But they should. You want to talk about tradition? Fine. But tradition doesn't make something right. Humans had traditions once too. Traditions about who could own property, who could vote, who had rights. We changed those traditions because they were wrong. Carol Bennett, the Human Council member, leaned forward. Engineer Mitchell, what specifically are you asking this council to do? Grant Lyra asylum. Recognize that forcing an 8-year-old child into a marriage contract violates fundamental rights that should transcend cultural boundaries. Kids should have a childhood. They should have choices. That shouldn't be a controversial idea. The Cawthon Council member spoke up, his voice translated into flat, emotionless comment. Many species in this galaxy do not recognize childhood as humans define it. Young beings are prepared for their adult roles from early ages. This is efficient. Efficient, Jake repeated, the word tasting bitter. Is that what matters? Efficiency? Not happiness? Not freedom? Not letting kids be kids? Those are human values, the Cawthon replied. And they're damn good values. The room erupted in murmurs. The Thraxian judge called for order. When the room quieted, she looked at Jake thoughtfully. You have presented an emotional argument, Engineer Mitchell. But emotion is not law. Do you have anything else? Jake's heart sank. This was it. They were going to lose. Then he felt a small hand slip into his. Lyra was standing, her legs shaking but her markings glowing steady and bright. I want to speak, she said in careful, clear comment. The judge looked surprised. The child wishes to address the council. Please, Lyra said. Ambassador Theron stood quickly. The child is not qualified to speak on legal matters. But I am qualified to speak about me, Lyra said, her voice small but firm. About my life. The Thraxian judge studied her for a long moment. The council will hear from Lyra of House Velkara. Lyra walked to the center of the room. She looked impossibly tiny standing there alone. Jake wanted to go to her, but Lisa grabbed his arm and held him back. This was Lyra's moment. I do not understand all the big words, Lyra began. I do not know law. But I know what happened to me. On my world, I was not a person. I was a thing. A piece in a game between families. Nobody asked me what I wanted. Nobody cared if I was happy or sad. Her voice was getting stronger. The whole room was silent, listening. When I was very small, they told me about my bonding. About the male I would join with when I was older. I asked if I could say no. They laughed. Said children do not get to choose. Said I would understand when I grew up. But I am growing up now, and I still do not understand why I cannot choose my own life. She turned to look at the Velkarian delegation. I ran because I was scared. I ran because I wanted to see if there was another way to live. And then I found humans. Lyra's markings flickered, showing emotion in the Velkarian way. When Jake found me, I was dying. I thought that was better than going back. But he did not know me. Did not know my family or my house or anything about me. He just saw someone who needed help, and he helped. He gave me his jacket. He gave me food. He gave me safety. She touched the jacket she was wearing. This jacket was the first kind thing anyone ever gave me without wanting something back. On my world, everything is trade. Everything is obligation. But Jake helped me just because I needed help. All the humans did. They taught me that children can be children. That people can be kind without reason. That I could maybe choose my own path. Tears were running down her face now, glowing slightly with bioluminescence. I do not want power. I do not want to break tradition or cause trouble. I just want to choose. I want to learn and grow and decide for myself who I will be. Is that wrong? In all the galaxy, with all the laws and all the traditions, is it wrong for a child to want to choose? The silence in the room was absolute. Even Ambassador Theron looked uncomfortable. The Thraxian judge's expression was unreadable, but her eyes were soft. Ambassador Theron, the judge said quietly. Does your culture have a response? Theron stood slowly. For the first time, he looked uncertain. The child has been influenced by human sentimentality. Given time, she will understand her duty. Will she? Carol Bennett, the Human Council member, spoke up. Or will she just learn to accept something that should never be accepted? Your Honors, I move that we recognize the fundamental right of sentient juveniles to petition for protection from binding agreements made without their consent. The Corthan Council member shifted. That would overturn legal precedent across dozens of worlds. Good, Bennett said firmly. Some precedents deserve to be overturned. The council deliberated for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Jake sat with Lyra, holding her hand. Whatever happened, he was proud of her. She'd found her voice. Finally, the Thraxian judge spoke. This council grants asylum to Lyra of House Velkara, pending her maturity, at which time she may choose whether to return to her homeworld or remain under galactic protection. Furthermore, we are referring the matter of juvenile bonding contracts to the Galactic Ethics Committee for review. The room exploded. The Velkarian delegation was on their feet, protesting. Human observers were cheering. News crews were recording everything. Jake just pulled Lyra into a hug while she cried into his shoulder. Ambassador Theron approached them as things calmed down. His expression was complex, angry but also something else. Thoughtful, maybe. You have created chaos, human, he said to Jake. Sometimes chaos is better than cruel order. Theron looked at Lyra. Child, you have brought shame to your house. Maybe, Lyra said quietly. Or maybe I started something that needed to start. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. The story spread across the galaxy. Other species began questioning their own traditions regarding children. Reform movements gained strength. The Velkarian government, facing internal pressure and galactic scrutiny, announced they would review bonding contract laws. Merchant Kell visited the ship one last time before they departed. You humans are dangerous, he told Jake with what might have been a smile. Dangerous how? You make the rest of us question things we thought were settled. You insist on hope and compassion even when logic says it is pointless. You are inefficient and emotional and entirely too stubborn. Kell's eyes gleamed. The galaxy is better for it. Jake officially adopted Lyra through human legal channels. The paperwork was complicated, spanning multiple legal systems, but he didn't care. She was his daughter now, in every way that mattered. On their last night at Port Meridian, Jake found Lyra on the observation deck, watching the stars. She'd finally given his jacket back, though she'd kept it for weeks. She was wearing a new one, sized for her, but she'd asked if she could keep the old one too. What are you thinking about? Jake asked. How big everything is, Lyra said. How many worlds there are. How many people. Overwhelming. No. Exciting. She looked up at him. On Velkara, my whole life was decided. My whole future was one small path. But now there are so many paths. So many choices. Scared. She smiled, her markings glowing warm and steady. A little. But also happy. Because I get to choose which path. And because I have you to help me figure it out. Jake put his arm around her shoulders. Somewhere out there, on cargo ships and space stations across the galaxy, other kids in bad situations were hearing the story. They were learning that sometimes, people would fight for them. That sometimes, compassion won over tradition. And they were looking for human ships, because they'd learned something the galaxy was finally starting to understand. Humans didn't just see problems. They saw people. And they never, ever abandoned their own.